Hello viewers, I am senthamarai, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of Economics, Holy Cross College Autonomous, Tiruchirappalli. Welcome to this video session on Methodology of Econometrics. The learning objectives of this video session: through this video lesson, the learners will be able to understand the steps involved in the methodology of econometric research. The learners will be able to derive economic relations between two or more phenomena. They will be able to gain familiarity with the fundamental principles of econometrics. So, how do econometricians proceed with their analysis of an economic problem? Or how do econometricians test economic theories? Though there are several schools of thought on econometric methodology, the traditional or classical methodology still dominates empirical research in economics and as well as in other social sciences and behavioral sciences. So, let us go with this methodology. There are several steps involved in the methodology of an econometric research, and the first and foremost step is statement of theory or hypothesis. For example, let us take the theory Keynes' psychological law of consumption, which states that men are disposed as a rule and on average to increase their consumption as their income increases, but not as much as the increase in income. So, here the theory states that firstly, consumption is determined by income. Secondly, consumption and income have positive relationship. And thirdly, the ratio of change in consumption to that of the change in income, that is the marginal propensity to consume, MPC, is less than 1. So, now this theory can be tested in econometrics. Let us see how. So, the second step involved in the methodology of econometric research is specification of the mathematical model of consumption. Theory, the law of consumption, postulates that there is a positive relationship between consumption and income. But the theory did not specify the functional form of the relationship. For the sake of simplicity, the mathematical economists might have formulated the Keynesian consumption function in this mathematical form, that is y is equal to b naught plus b1x, where y denotes consumption expenditure, x denotes income, and b1 and b naught are parameters of the model, and b1 is the slope coefficient and b naught is the intercept coefficient. Here the variable on the left hand side is called dependent variable and the variable on the right hand side is called independent variable or explanatory variable. Thus, in the Keynesian consumption function, consumption is the dependent variable and income is the independent variable. So, the third step involved in the methodology of econometric research is specification of the econometric model of consumption. The mathematical model of consumption function may be of limited interest to econometricians, because mathematical model assumes that there is an exact relationship between consumption and income. But in real life, the relationship between economic variables are generally inexact, and therefore, to include the inexact nature of relationship among economic variables, an econometrician would modify the mathematical expression as follows, that is y is equal to b naught plus b1x plus u. So, here an addition has been made to the mathematical expression, that is u. So, u here stands for, it is a random variable or error term or disturbance term or stochastic term. This disturbance term u represents all those factors that affect consumption but that are not taken into account explicitly. So, now we have formulated an econometric model. Now, the model has to be estimated. To estimate any econometric model, the basic requirement is data. So, now we have to obtain data, and while obtaining data, we have to remember that there are different types of data available for empirical analysis. For example, there is time series data, cross section data and panel data. Time series data are data on a variable over a period of time. Cross section data refers to data on one or more than one variable observed at a point in time, and panel data is a combination of time series data and cross section data. So, here is the table, an imaginary data set of the two variables, consumption expenditure and income. So, now we can estimate the model using this imaginary data set. So, the fifth step involved in the methodology of econometric research is estimation of the econometric model. So, to estimate econometric model, different tools are used. For example, there is ordinary least square method, weighted least square method, two-stage least square method, maximum likelihood estimation, etc. But the most popular and the commonly used method is the ordinary least square method, because it satisfies several statistical properties, and ordinary least square method is called the best linear unbiased estimator. So, now this model has been estimated with that ordinary least square method, and here is the estimated results of the model, that y cap is equal to 0.75 plus 0.27x, which denotes that 0.75 is the intercept coefficient, 0.27 is the slope parameter, that is MPC. MPC is equal to 0.27. So, this estimated model indicates that an increase in income by 1 rupee will result in an increase of about 27 paise in real consumption expenditure. Or in other words, when income increases by 1 unit, consumption also will increase by 0.27 units. Now, after estimating the model, we have to evaluate the parameters of the model. That means we have to find out the statistical significance of the parameters of the model. We have estimated two parameters, one is B0, the intercept coefficient, the other one is B1, the slope coefficient. So, these two coefficients have to be evaluated, or we have to find out the statistical significance of these two regression coefficients. And there are several methods used to evaluate the statistical significance of the parameters, and the most commonly used methods are, the first one is economic a priori criteria, which means what the theory says about the size and sign of the parameter. For example, the Keynes psychological law of consumption prescribes that the marginal propensity to consume should always be positive but less than 1. So, if you take this prescription, our regression coefficient 0.27 satisfies this economic a priori criteria. So, the MPC is 0.27, which is in accordance with the prescriptions of Keynes psychological law. So, therefore, in that sense, we can call it a significant parameter because it satisfies the first criteria. Very similar to this, we can use other criteria as well. For example, there is statistical criteria wherein we use several tests to test the statistical significance of the parameters. Like for example, there is t-test, f-test or analysis of variance test, standard error test and several other tests are available, which are called first order criteria. Then there is another criteria called econometric criteria, wherein we use several tools to test the significance of the parameters, which are called second order criteria. So, therefore, using these three criteria, we can find out whether the regression coefficients or the parameters in the econometric model are statistically significant or not. Then, after evaluating the parameters, and if it is found that the parameters are statistically significant, then we can go ahead with the next step. That is, we can use them, using the model, we can do forecasting or prediction. We can forecast or predict. So, if the parameters in the chosen model are statistically significant, the model could be used to predict variable y on the basis of the expected value of variable x. Then the last step involved in the methodology of econometric research is using the model for control or policy purposes. So, using the model by appropriate policy mix, the government can manipulate the control variable to produce the desired level of the target variable y. So, therefore, to summarize, the various steps involved in the methodology of econometric research includes, firstly, stating the theory or hypothesis, secondly, expressing the mathematical model of the theory, thirdly, expressing the econometric model of the theory, fourthly, collecting data or obtaining data, then fifthly, estimation of the econometric model, then sixthly, evaluating the parameters of the model or testing the hypothesis. Seventhly, forecasting or prediction, and finally using the model for control or policy purposes. So here are some of the reference books used for this video lesson, then some of the frequently asked questions. So thank you all.